Hi, this is Fatima. Here let us discuss about the configuration of SQL Server with Entity Framework Code. Before proceeding to this video, watch my previous video where we have discussed about the importance of DbContext class in Entity Framework Code. Configuration. When using the Entity Framework Code, one of the important things that we need to configure is the database provider that we plan to use. Entity Framework Code supports a wide variety of database, even including non-relational database. This link has a list of all the supported databases. So if you want to configure and use the Microsoft SQL Server with Entity Framework Code, then we usually specify the configuration in ConfigureServices method in the Startup.cs file. And also we use either AddDbContext or the AddDbContextPool to register our application specific DbContext class with the ASP.NET Core dependency injection system. And also we will be using the SQL Server extension method to configure our application specific DbContext class to use the Microsoft SQL Server as a database. Let us understand this configuration with a simple example. .NET Core web application we have created with a simple empty project template. Let us use this in order to configure the SQL Server with Entity Framework Code. In order to configure and use the SQL Server with Entity Framework Code, let us open the Startup.cs file and let us specify the configuration in ConfigureServices method. So let us add services dot. We can use either AddDbContext or the AddDbContextPool method to register our application specific DbContext class with ASP.NET Core dependency injection system. With this DbContext pooling, the instance from the DbContextPool is provided if available rather than creating a new instance. This DbContext pooling is conceptually similar to how the connection pooling works in AD.NET. From the performance point of view, this AddDbContextPool method is better over the AddDbContext. AddDbContextPool method is introduced in ASP.NET Core 2.0. We are using ASP.NET Core 2.2, so let us use this AddDbContextPool method over AddDbContext method. Let us use SQL Server extension method to configure our application specific DbContext class to use the Microsoft SQL Server as a database. In order to connect to the database, we need the database connection string which should be provided as a parameter to this UseSql Server extension method. So in a classic ASP.NET, we store the application configuration in web.config file, web.config file, which is in the XML format. In ASP.NET Core, there are different configuration sources. One configuration source is this application settings.json file. So instead of hard coding the connection string in application code, we can store the connection string in this appsettings.json file. We are using SQL Server Local DB, which is automatically installed along with the Visual Studio. If we want to use a full SQL Server instead of this local DB, simply we can change the connection string here to point to our instance of the SQL Server. This trusted underscore connection equal to true specifies the thing that we are using integrated Windows authentication to connect to the SQL Server instead of using the SQL Server authentication. To read the connection string from this appsettings.json file, we have to use this IConfiguration instance. So we have used the instance of this IConfiguration service and the method on that GetConnectionString, and we are using the DbConnection name that we have mentioned here. Now our application is still using the sample product repository, which is an in-memory collection of products. In our next video, let us see how to implement the SQL repository, which stores and retrieves the product from the SQL Server local DB that we have just now configured. Hope you enjoyed this video. Our next video is about ASP.NET Core repository pattern. Thank you.